You can contact me if you want to get hold of me in the future. If you write to me, text me, tell me you were here so I can identify, how you heard about me or learned about me. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. As long as I'm here, if I'm overseas, I won't respond. You can use WhatsApp, but I won't respond till I get back to the U.S. So that's my email and my cell phone. Okay, so let's get started. I don't know. No, it's right here. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Are any of you tired? Do you want more energy? Pay attention. Okay. I'll ask you to just bow your heads for a moment. Heavenly Father, we come to be your children. Please send your Holy Spirit to guide and instruct. May the words be yours, not mine. May each one hear what you want them to hear, that we may serve you more faithfully and have more energy to be witnesses for you to all our friends, family, loved ones, neighbors, wherever you send to us. May we use the opportunities you give us to share your love and how you've changed and transformed our lives. We thank you and praise you in Jesus' name. May his will be done. Amen. Sometimes people think when they go to a health program, we're going to take all the fun out of your life. That's not true. I already showed you this. My goal is to give you more life to enjoy the fun. And I want you to live forever, to be my friends forever. And I want you to bring lots more friends with you when you come, when the Lord comes to take you home, okay? You are what you eat. Choose carefully what you eat, because I don't want you to end up like he's way too short. He needs to grow taller. So I don't call people overweight. I just say you're vertically challenged. You're too short, okay? And if you can grow taller, that's great. And if you can't, I guess the next best thing is to lose weight, okay? Okay. How is food medicine? Hippocrates was a Greek physician. He lived about 400 BC, 430 years BC. He must have been a very good observer because he looked at the people that he cared for. He made a correlation between what they ate and the diseases they had. So he said, let thy food be thy medicine, and let thy medicine be food. Okay? Now, the master lovers of destiny. Feet, do you exercise? Forks, what do you put in your mouth? When I'm in Asia, I use chopsticks, okay? I say feet, chopsticks, fingers, and I hope you don't smoke. And your attitude is really important. And Mary Hard doeth good like a medicine. That's the King James Version. But I like to use this one on occasion. Being cheerful keeps you healthy. Slow death to be gloomy all the time. Be positive. Don't be negative. Don't worry. Matthew says, be ye not concerned. That means don't worry. So if you're worrying, you're going contrary to what Matthew told you. He says, be ye not concerned. The modern translation, don't worry, okay? You're going to have a good day or a bad day. We talked about that earlier. And if you wake up, it's going to be a good day. If you don't wake up, you don't have to worry about it, okay? So remember that. If you're up, it's going to be a great day because you can start the day with Jesus, the Heavenly Father. Well, in talking about food, we think about, we divide food into three main groups: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And what should be the bulk of your diet? Fats, carbohydrates, or proteins? Carbohydrates. Anywhere from 50 up to even 80% of your calories can be from carbohydrates. And the things that you see in this picture, they contain primarily carbohydrates. The nuts and so on, there's some protein, there's fats and protein there. Of course, the cereal grains have protein as well. But your fruits are primarily carbohydrates. Sugars, starches, fiber. And you want all of that. Okay. So changing your diet will make a difference. And Hippocrates, we've already heard about him. So let's go on. I want these words indelibly imprinted. I didn't say tattooed. Imprinted in your mind. New start. Nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, air, rest. Last and most important, trust in God. Okay? If you know your parents, your brothers, sisters, aunts, and uncles, what diseases they had, you better pay attention, because if they had a disease which helped speed up their death, you better find out what it was, what they had, and if there's anything you can do to decrease your risk for getting that disease, okay? So today is the first day of all the rest. True or false? How long is all the rest? And what does your lifestyle include, okay? Because if your lifestyle is a good lifestyle, you can live for how long? Forever. Right. So your lifestyle includes everything you do and what you don't do. Because there's some really important things that you shouldn't do. Like there's certain foods you shouldn't eat. And there's some foods you should eat, and maybe you even need to eat more of them. So let's explore that and find out what they are. Food affects you physically, mentally, and spiritually. We've talked about that earlier. So food is really important. Plant foods eaten whole. Eaten whole means less processing and refining. So remember that. The more processed and more refined, there's a greater risk of it being unhealthy. Whole foods, plant-based. So here are the words I want you to think about. Eat healthy, low fat, low refined sugar, with the exception of those who have diabetes. If you have diabetes, I don't want you to eat any refined sugar. You can have fruits and things, but not refined sugar, okay? Yeah, so we'll help you understand, okay? Eat healthy, low-fat, low-refined sugar, whole foods, plant-based, at regular times, with how much between meals? Nothing between meals. How much food? Enough to get you to and to keep you at your ideal weight. Very simple. 28 words. Eat healthy, low-fat, low-refined sugar, whole foods, plant-based at regular times with nothing between meals, sufficient quantity to get you to attain and to maintain your ideal weight. That's a graduate degree in nutrition. How's that? Okay. How should you choose your food? Is the governing factor only taste? No. Taste is important, but you can learn to pick healthy foods and fix healthy foods that taste good. I mean, most of your fruits and things like that and so on, your fruits are naturally, they taste good. So, well, I don't think lemons taste too good because I don't like the sour taste, but, you know, that's part of it. But, you know, I like oranges and apples and bananas and blueberries and boysenberries and you know, mangoes and papayas and things like that. You know, all of those fruits taste great and they're wonderful. And those are natural sugars. Those are not refined sugars, okay? When you go to the market and you go down, you see the sugar, C&H sugar, you know, or the another thing, another word that they use is they have lots of significant number of foods. High fructose corn syrup. That's a refined sugar. I mean, fructose is fruit sugar. And most words which end in OSE, sucrose, dextrose, maltose, lactose, are all sugars. And another thing when you go shopping, if you're looking for juices, if it says nectar, or it says has the letters ADE, lemonade, limeade, orangeade, ADE, nectars, drinks, almost those invariably have refined sugar or high fructose corn syrup in them. So remember, OSE, sucrose, dextrose, maltose, lactose, you know, mannose, those are sugars. And when they say, they used to say, they don't say this anymore, this is before the public got more informed, they used to say, no sugar. And what did they put in there? High fructose corn syrup. But now the public knows that that's no good, okay? So is appetite a safe guide? No, through habits of eating, the appetite has become perverted. Appetite often demands food that impairs your health. Well, you want it because it tastes good. I'll tell you some of my favorite things that I used to eat that there's no way I would eat them now. You know, I'm ethnically Chinese. And one of the things I learned to eat when I was a younger child, when I was non-vegetarian, was Peking roast duck. So I guess it's called Beijing roast duck now, not Peking. But Peking roast duck, well, the part that I liked the best was the skin. And that's where all the fat is, but that's where the taste is. In KFC, where's the taste? In the skin, you know, and that's where the fat is, you know. And so if I just go by what tastes good and not what's good for me, I'm going to have problems. But mangoes taste good when they're sweet, you know. Strawberries, blueberries, boysenberries, blackberries, cherries, figs, pineapple, those all taste good. And they're good for you, okay? So don't be guided by the customs of society. And, you know, most people say, you know, when your baby's growing up, as soon as they're able to eat solid food, you know, after they get started maybe with rice cereal and things, you want to give them some form of meat, you know, fish and chicken. No, you don't want to do that. Plant-based, okay? Many popular errors in regard to diet. So ideally, carbs should make up the bulk of your calories. Complex, unrefined fruit is unrefined, complex, okay? When you take the fruit and you make juice out of it, then that's been partially refined. Because most juices, they take what? The fiber's gone. And you know, unless you put the fruit like in a Vitamix or something, and you've got all the fiber there. But carbohydrates, fat, you need fat. You can't live on a fat-free diet, okay? You would not survive. And you need protein. But you don't need meat, fish, chicken, eggs, and cheese, and dairy for your protein. You can get it from plant sources, and we'll talk about that as we, well, no, I guess I'm talking about carb. Protein is found in all your legumes. You had beans here. You know, there's protein there. You had bread. There's protein there, cereal grains. And so cereal grains and legumes give you protein. There's no problem with getting enough protein. If you eat a variety of plant foods enough to maintain your weight, it's impossible for you to be protein deficient. I'm going to say that again, because people say, but if I don't have any meat, fish, chicken, eggs, or cheese, I'll be protein deficient. No. If you eat a variety of whole plant foods, okay, enough to maintain your weight, it's virtually impossible for you to be protein deficient, okay? Because you'll get protein in your cereal grains, you get protein in your legumes, okay? Those are the primary sources of protein. There is one legume that's a complete protein all by itself. Rice is a cereal grain. It's got protein. It's got carbohydrates. You're better off with brown rice than white rice. The whiter the rice, the sooner you're on ice. Okay? So brown rice is better. White rice, you know, I eat white rice, but brown rice is better for you. So, okay, now we'll go back to what? Oh, yeah. There's one legume that's a complete protein. You want to guess which one it is? What? No. Soybeans. And there's one cereal grain that's a complete protein. Normally you have to combine a grain with a legume to get a complete protein. Like rice and beans, complete protein. You know, tofu and rice, complete protein. But soybeans are a complete protein, and the one cereal grain that's a complete protein, by a complete protein, they have to have a certain amount of essential amino acids necessary for growth. And the one cereal grain that's a complete protein all by itself is quinoa. Quinoa and legumes are the two foods that are complete protein by themselves, plant foods that are complete protein. Otherwise, you combine a grain with a legume. And in most societies in the world, they do that. I mean, you know, like in Africa, it's maize or corn, and then they have legumes, beans. In the Hispanics, you know, you like rice and beans. You know, that's fine. And in China, we have soybeans, tofu, and rice. You got your complete protein. What? What? Bread? Yeah, whole wheat bread. Yeah, whole wheat bread. Okay, so let's go on. 2/3 of adult Americans are too short. I'm going to mute him. So, maintain your ideal weight or less, regular exercise, whole plant foods eaten whole, no snacking. The only thing that should pass between your lips between meals is your tongue and water, okay? No food, no calories, and keep your fat content of your diet down. Principle number 1, eat a wholesome and balanced breakfast large enough to provide 1/3 to 1/2 of your day's nutrient requirements. On most days, I usually only eat 2 meals a day. And sometimes, on some days, I'll just eat 1 meal a day, but you know, that's a personal choice. So, I mean, what? Oh, it depends when I get up. See, you know, they said early to bed, early to rise makes someone healthy, wealthy, and wise. Well, I did that when I was working. Now that I don't have to report for work at 8 o'clock in the morning, I usually get up later in the morning. I usually eat my breakfast later, and so on like that. But when I had an 8 to 5 job, you know, I would get up like at 6:30 to have breakfast, and then I would eat my lunch like at 1:30 or so in the afternoon. Then I usually would not eat anything else. With my children were growing, we would give them 3 meals a day. Okay, but now I don't have to worry about my children, and I don't have to worry about grandchildren. I expect my children to take care of their children, and so I don't have to babysit them. Besides, I guess our youngest grandchild is probably somewhere well, they're in their teens, so I don't have to worry about grandchildren. Okay? Wholesome and balanced breakfast, large enough to provide 1/3 to 1/2 of your day's nutrient requirements. Eat breakfast like a king. That should be your heartiest or largest meal of the day. Lunch like a prince, and supper, if you want to eat it, the smallest, you know, supper like a pauper, okay? Now, this was a study that was done, reported at this American Heart Association's meeting. People who eat breakfast are less likely to be too short, obese, and less likely to develop diabetes. So, than those who usually don't. Researchers report this American Heart Association's 43rd Annual Conference on Cardiovascular Disease, Epidemiology, and Prevention. Okay? Now, obesity and insulin resistance syndrome rates were 35 to 50% lower among people who ate breakfast daily compared to those who frequently skipped it. Insulin resistance is something that we learn about and we find when we're working with people who have diabetes. One of the common causes of diabetes is food, and eating the standard American diet causes insulin resistance. But what is insulin resistance? The easiest way to help explain that to you is we'll say this room here represents a cell, and the doors to the room represent insulin receptors, okay? And the job of this is when you eat food, your carbohydrates, it is turned into blood glucose or blood sugar. For you to be able to use that blood sugar, the blood sugar or blood glucose has to get into the cell. The only way it can get into the cell is through the insulin receptors, which would be like doors. If the doors are closed, there's insulin resistance. Okay? Even if there's insulin present, it can't get in because the doors are closed. There's insulin resistance. So how do we get the doors open? Well, one other thing talking about insulin resistance, eating meat, fish, chicken causes insulin resistance or closes the doors. So when you stop eating meat, fish, and chicken, there's less insulin resistance, and the insulin can then do its job of transporting the sugar molecule, blood glucose, into the cell where it's stored as something called glycogen. And this gives the energy for the cell to work and to function and to live. So, one of the problems with the American diet, the standard American diet, is all the meat, fish, and chicken and all the fat causes insulin resistance, and it closes the doors. So when I get a patient who comes to me with diabetes, one of the things I want to help them to do is overcome their insulin resistance. And one of the best ways to overcome the insulin resistance is to stop eating meat, fish, and chicken, which closes the doors. Have a lower fat diet, which closes the doors. What opens the doors and makes the receptors active? A vegan diet, low fat, exercise. So this is why a person who has diabetes, as soon as they finish eating, taking the last bite of food, they should go for a nice leisurely walk. What does that do? That opens the doors, decreases the insulin resistance, so the insulin that is there can do its job. Understand? Clear? Okay? So we'll take questions later. So again, eat a good breakfast. Now, students who eat breakfast do better in their tests in school. They remember better, okay? But they don't want to have a real greasy, oily breakfast, okay? Now, breakfast is a memory booster. If you get breakfast, especially children, they'll remember better the things they studied the night before. Snack breakfast, sugar pops, frosted flakes, all these sugar-coated cereals, those are not what you want to give them. And you don't want to give them toast with a great big thick layer of jelly on it, okay? Some peanut butter, you can use applesauce and things like that, okay? Children who miss proper breakfast in favor of sugary snacks end up with reaction times of pensioners, say researchers. And you go walk down the cereal aisle in any market, and probably at least 1/3 to 1/2 of the sugars, they've got some kind of sugar coating on it. They have frosted flakes, or they may put honey in it or whatever. But you don't want those. And when I go down the cereal, or when I go look at foods, I pick out the container of food, and I look at the nutritional content, and I look at their dietary breakdown. It says sugars, and the one phrase that I look for is the bottom says added sugar. How many grams of added sugar have they put in there? And if the number's low, that's not so bad. But if the number's like some things they will have added sugar, they'll say for one serving it may have one or 2 grams. Well, that's pretty good. I like none is better. But sometimes it's like 5, 10, or 15 grams of added sugar. That's not so good. So learn to read labels. Children who ate breakfast and took their test a few hours after consuming soft drinks or chocolate reacted at the level of a 70-year-old. Well, I'm a little bit older than 70. There is concern that children's diets may affect their study. That's true. Conventional breakfasts such as cereals, oatmeal, toast, whole wheat toast, okay, have more complex carbohydrates, while snacks tend to have more simple carbohydrates such as sugars. Everyone's cognitive function, that's the way your brain works and functions, goes down during the morning, but the rate of decline among kids who ate a complex carbohydrate-rich breakfast, like oatmeal, was only half of that seen among those who ate a simple carbohydrate breakfast. So, and not only that, if you have your oatmeal, but you've got a big, not a big, but a bowl there of sugar, and before people, they put in 2 or 3 tablespoons of sugar into their oatmeal, that's not so good. If you want to add something, add fruit, or you can have unsweetened applesauce. You can get unsweetened applesauce, that's available. And so that's acceptable. But you don't want to add sugar, brown sugar, and all those things, okay? Eating a big fast food breakfast may spur a large inflammatory response in the blood vessels. An occasional indulgence and a high-fat, high-carbohydrate diet probably poses no concern. Well, how often is occasional? Like every other day, or no? That's maybe how about once or twice a month, or in other words, you don't want to do it. Definitely not 3 or 4 times a week. Okay. These findings suggest that this high sugar diet can lead to chronic vessel inflammation and complications such as heart attack and stroke, diabetes, and all of those things. Principle number 2, eat 2 or 3 planned meals with nothing except water between meals. Eat meals at a table designed for meals. And this is all in the handout that is prepared for you, okay? When you eat is just as important as what you eat. Space your meals out. You want to have, at least 4 hours, 5 hours between meals is better, okay? In most cases, 2 meals a day are preferable to 3. And when you take supper at an early hour, it interferes with the digestion of the previous meal. And you want to have your food digested before you go to sleep. So you don't want to go to sleep for 2 or 3 hours till after you've had your last meal. Principle number 3, choose fresh and dried fruits with unrefined flours for wholesome desserts that provide vitamins and minerals for good nutrition. Eat less sugar. Fresh and dried fruits, raisins, or dried grapes. And there's all kinds of dried fruits available. You can dry apples, and things like that. And you can buy fruit dryers, and you can dry them at home, or you can buy the fruit already dried. Now, glucose, that's a scientific name for your sugar. When we measure your blood glucose, we're measuring your blood sugar. So when you eat your carbohydrates, it's broken down by your digestive tract into glucose. It's the gasoline of the body. All cells burn glucose for energy, a primary fuel for the brain. The blood levels are very well controlled the way that God designed and created us so that we maintain them at a good level. The normal range for your fasting blood sugar should be somewhere between 70 and 99. And when diabetes comes in, your blood glucose regulatory system is not working so well, and the blood glucose or blood sugar levels are higher. Sugar. 16% of a day's calorie or sugar in the average person's diet. 20% for teenagers. There's 15 calories per teaspoon of refined sugar. And a 2-ounce Three Musketeers candy bar, 10 teaspoons of sugar. Well, 10 teaspoons of sugar, 15 calories per teaspoon, that's 150 calories. Now, Cinnabon, do you know what a Cinnabon is? Let's see if do I have a picture. Maybe I don't have. Okay. Cinnabons are like, cinnamon rolls, and they have a nice big thick layer of sugar on there, okay? So when you go buy rolls and stuff, if they got a white coating on the top, that's usually a lot of sugar which is added, okay? Liquid candy, soda pop. Twice as much soda is consumed as milk, 6 times more soda than fruit juice, 54 gallons a year for the average person in the U.S., and that's approximately 19 ounces a day. An average can of soda pop is about approximately 12 ounces. So that means that's about 1.5 cans a day. And I'm not drinking it. The average teenage boy drinks 42 ounces of soda pop a day. 1 in 10 drinks 7 cans a day. Girls drink 31 ounces. A child size, serving 12 ounces, small is 16. A double gulp at 7-Eleven, 64 ounces. How many ounces to a quart? 32. So that's 2 quarts. That means it's a half gallon. That's not good. So liquid candy, largest source of added sugars in the U.S. diet, is non-diet soft drinks. Bad news. Diets high in sugar, more cavities, more high fats, triglycerides, more obesity, more bone loss and fractures, and poor diet quality. Now, this is a chart that shows you the amount of these nutrients that are lost when you take whole wheat, the whole wheat kernel, and you refine it and make white flour. This is white flour, okay? You lose thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, and iron. And the others, those are the losses, okay? 86%. So now when you buy enriched white flour, they add the 4 back that are in blue: thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, iron. So this is how much loss there is of these nutrients. So we say the whiter the bread, the quicker you're dead, okay? So remember, and the whiter the rice, the sooner you're on ice. So when they add the 4 back, they say that's enriched. Is that enriched? That's really deprived. You're not doing so well. Now, this is how many slices of white bread versus whole wheat bread for these nutrients, okay? So for vitamin B1, you would need to have 7 slices of white bread to equal the amount of thiamine, vitamin B6, niacin, and iron that you would get in 1 slice of whole wheat bread, okay? Biotin is 10, so you can see how it is. So we should really call it the great grain robbery when you have white flour versus whole wheat or wholemeal. Those who eat fast foods more than 2 times a week have a 50% greater risk of obesity than do those who eat this way less than once a week, okay? The risk of abnormal blood sugar, blood glucose control, which often precedes diabetes, is double if you eat fast food. Teens are getting about 610 calories a day from snacks compared to 460 calories a day back in '77. And these snacks being eaten are more energy dense. So it doesn't take up as much volume. So you say, well, you can eat more. And you eat more, you get more calories, and you get broader. You gain weight easier. Are carbs bad? No. But you need carbs, but you need the right type of carb. Most efficient source of glucose, carbs, maximize your physical endurance. And those of you who do much like endurance type exercises like running, long bicycle rides, we say running a marathon, which is 26.22 miles, like from here to Ontario Airport, maybe that's not 26 miles, but anyhow, a marathon is 26.22 miles. And in bicycle events, they have riding a century or riding 100 miles. And so if you want to participate in these types of physical events or swimming long distances, you want to have a high carbohydrate diet. Not refined, but complex carbohydrate stuff, okay? Maximal physical endurance, packaged with nutrients, fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and phytochemicals. You want them like in whole foods, okay? key is choosing the right quantity and the best quality of carbohydrate. Fruits and fruit juices. Now, fruit is good. Fruit juices are okay, but you don't want to eat lots of fruit juices because in most fruit juices, the fiber has been removed. Some will have the pulp. If you have a Vitamix, you can put it in, and then you'll have all the pulp. But still, that's been partially processed, so it will tend to raise your blood glucose a little bit faster than it would if you ate the fruit, okay? Grains and grain products, beans, good source of carbohydrates, milk, there's the only carbohydrate, well, there is some carbohydrate in milk. It's usually in the form of lactose, which is the milk sugar, okay? Yogurt, ice cream, ricotta, that's in cheese. Foods with carbs, sugary foods, candy, regular sodas, sweet baked goods, cakes, cookies, pies, and donuts. And whenever you see frosting or something that's a white coating on the roll or stuff you eat, you can be sure that it's fairly high in sugar. Oh yeah, and donuts, you know, the pies, you know, frosting on cakes and things like that. Fiber's a forgotten nutrient. If you don't get enough fiber, heart disease, more common. Fiber will decrease your risk of heart disease, colorectal cancer, diabetes, obesity, constipation. So in a whole food, plant-based diet, you'll have less heart disease, colorectal cancer, diabetes, obesity, and constipation. Okay? Fiber is the undigestible carbohydrate, cellulose, roughage, or bulk, and you don't have the enzyme cellulase to digest the fiber. It passes through the digestive system virtually unchanged, okay? And if you've got problems with constipation, which is a common problem amongst people, part of the problem is fiber, part of the problem is water, and part of the problem is exercise. If you've got enough fiber, you get enough water, enough exercise, you're not going to be constipated. And you won't have to use all kinds of things like X-Lax and things like that, okay? So please note as you look at this chart here, common sources of fiber, apple, orange, you see the number of grams, but over on the right side, how much fiber do you have in eggs, meat, milk, and cheese? None. This is for one serving, a cup of one serving or one piece unless otherwise indicated. Now, common sources of fiber, whole wheat bread, you know, like a slice of whole wheat bread, 2.1 grams of fiber, bagels, and so on. You can see the fiber there. Cauliflower, broccoli, peas, Brussels sprouts, lentils. See, those are all good sources. Those are all sources of fiber. How much fiber? Meat, poultry, fish, eggs, milk, and cheese? 0. None. Now, this was a study which showed that people who ate more than 16 grams of fiber per day compared with those who ate less than 16 grams a day, the amount of heart disease. So those on the right who consume more than 16 grams of fiber a day, their risk for heart disease was decreased by, you know, like about 50 to 60%. So again, you want more fiber. Now, and this just shows some sources of fiber, and the red colors for ladies and the blue colors for guys as far as the risk for heart disease goes. Now, low fiber diet or constipation, appendicitis, diverticular disease. A diverticular disease is on the colon. There's like a little pouch on the colon, bulges out. That's called a diverticulum. And it's more common on people with a low fiber diet. Hiatus hernia, that's another condition. More varicose veins, hemorrhoids, and bowel cancer on a low fiber diet. More colon polyps, heart disease, strokes, diabetes, and gallbladder disease. So this was a study which showed people compared with a good breakfast and an inadequate breakfast. So the good breakfast was what you want, better assimilation, better work output, more efficiency and energy, more industrious, more attention, quick reaction time, steadiness, positive attitude, and good nutrition. So you don't really want like a cup of coffee and a donut as you dash out the door. That's not a good nutritious breakfast, okay? Now, this was an interesting study showing that if you have refined sugar in the diet, what it does to the body's ability to fight off disease. Phagocytes are the disease-fighting cells in the body, okay? And if you don't have any sugar in, refined sugar in the food, the phagocytes will kill 14 bacteria. If you have a donut with 6 teaspoons of sugar, instead of killing 14 bacteria, it's only going to kill 10, a 25% decrease. If you have a piece of, if you have 2 donuts, you know, it goes down 12, 5, 60. You have a banana split, it's only going to kill 1 bacteria, 92% decrease in the body's ability to fight off disease, and uncontrolled diabetes. So this is why if you tend to eat a high refined sugar diet, you may get sick more frequently, more easily and more frequently, okay? Hidden sugar in foods, malted milk. You know, like a good old malted milk, you know, milkshake, 12 ounces. 12 ounces is only about the size, you know, most of your soda pop cans, they used to be 12 ounces. Now they're making them a little bit smaller so they don't have to increase the price. But it's 42 teaspoons of sugar. Soft drinks, 10 to 12 teaspoons of sugar. Canned fruit, light syrup, 8 teaspoons. And you can just go down the list here. Even 1 tablespoon of jam or jelly, 3 teaspoons of sugar. Glazed donut, you know, 4 teaspoons of sugar. Now, these are the way they hide the names of sugar on your food nutrition labels. They'll say brown sugar, corn sweeteners, dextrose, honey, maple syrup, raw sugar, white sugar, confectioner's sugar, high fructose corn syrup, granulated sugar, levulose, molasses, turbinate. Those are all added sugars which they put in foods. So remember, most words which end in OSC are sugars: dextrose, sucrose, maltose, mannose, and so on. 8 sugars linked to 8 cancers linked to sugar consumption: colorectal cancer, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, prostate cancer, kidney cancer, and cancers of the nervous system. So if you eat more refined sugars, you increase your risk for those types of cancers. If you want to gain weight, and if you want to gain weight, drink diet sodas, use artificial sweeteners, and things like that. I don't know many people who want to gain weight. Sometimes I have few people, they say they want to gain weight. Well, I say if you want to gain weight, you want to gain muscle. So I want you to work out, you know, do weight training, you know, push-ups, sit-ups. You want to do exercise. So So I want you to gain muscle, not fat. Artificial sweeteners increase the desire for real sweeteners, okay? Effective food processing on blood glucose levels. So we start with an apple. You see again how the blood sugar levels minutes after meal, at what number they are. Apple versus applesauce versus apple juice. So apple juice will get your sugar up higher, and you know, apples are fine. Applesauce. When I like applesauce, but I buy unsweetened applesauce. Okay, and I'll drink apple juice occasionally, but I won't take a great big large amount. I try to limit my juice intake to 4 to 5 ounces, 4 to 6 ounces. Okay, exercise and risk of diabetes. And this shows that you decrease your risk of diabetes by 50% in those who are at risk with exercise. Okay, so regular exercise is important. Ideal basic 4 diet plan. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, unrefined whole grains, and nuts and seeds in moderation. That should be what you have. Plant-based foods. Now, this was a study in which they had these athletes ride and exercise bicycle. They had to maintain a certain speed, and they had 3 different diets which they tested them with, and they wanted to see how long they could maintain the speed. On the high-fat, high-protein diet, like the standard American diet, they were able to go for 57 minutes. On a mixed diet, they doubled their time. With the high carbohydrate diet, they almost tripled their time. Then they took a sample of muscle tissue to find out the amount of glycogen. That's when sugar gets stored in your muscle, it's stored as glycogen. And you see on the high-fat, high-carbohydrate, 0.63 grams per 100 grams of wet muscle tissue versus 3.51 grams, which is almost 6 times as much. So which type of diet and food is going to give you the most energy? High complex carbohydrates, okay? So now let's see, I think that's it. Any questions? Oh. Give me one question at a time.
Okay. I had 2, so is it turned on now? Okay, so you talked about your meals. You have 2 meals a day usually.
Yes.
And I'm retired, so I will have a later breakfast, usually around 9, and then a later lunch.
Hold it up to your mouth.
Oh, that's what you're saying. Okay, so I'll have my breakfast around 9 o'clock, and then I'll have my lunch around 2, and then I try not to have supper, but sometimes I have a little supper if I need it. But the internet right now is has a lot on intermittent fasting, and they really promote that you can have breakfast at any time. You can have breakfast at noon. I know quite a few people now that have their breakfast at noon, and then they have their lunch at like 5 or 6 o'clock. So what do you think about that as far as meal planning? Do you have any?
No, it depends on your schedule. The little lady who wrote all those books, whose initials are EGW, the Spirit of Prophecy, recommends 2 meals a day. So when you get them in, as I said, you want to space them out. Minimum of 4 hours, 5 or 6 hours between meals is better. And if you're going to eat 3 meals a day, you want to get your third meal in so that you don't go to sleep for 2 to 3 hours after your third meal. And like I said, breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and supper like a pauper. If you eat 3 meals a day, your third meal should be very small and very light. Okay? Preferably you want to have at least 5 hours between meals.
Okay, the reason I raised up this question is because you had a slide that talked about all the physical and mental benefits of having a breakfast.
Yeah.
But so you're saying it doesn't matter what time of the day you have that breakfast?
Well, for kids, you've got to get up early and go to school, you're going to eat your breakfast earlier.
But
If
for
you're-
retired people?
If you don't have a job to report to, and you can sleep into 8 or 9 or 10, well, then you eat breakfast when you get up, and then do your second meal 5 or 6 hours later.
But what do you think about having your breakfast at noon? Is that, you don't have any,
I don't have any
Okay.
objections to that.
okay, thank you.
You know, as long as if you're going to eat a second meal, it's 5 hours later and at least 3 hours before you go to sleep. Any other questions?
We know that fruits has lots of fibers, and you mentioned there in your slide that pear has more fiber. How about the fresh pear?
Fresh what?
Pear
Yeah.
fruit.
Pear, that's fruit, that's fine.
Which one has more fiber? The canned pear or the fresh?
Well, the fiber is going to be the same whether it's canned or fresh, but if you have a canned pear, remember they may pack it with sugar, you know, the syrup. So be careful with that. You want to rinse off. So use fresh or frozen. Canned things, you got to see what they can it in. So if it's sugar, you know, if syrup, you don't want that. Frozen is better. I like blueberries. I try to eat some blueberries almost every day. And if they're not too expensive, I buy them fresh. But lately I've been buying frozen ones. And so it depends. I'm biased. I've tried different brands, and I will admit that Costco seems to have the best. They have organic, fresh frozen blueberries, and they're nice and they're sweet. So I use those. But when the fresh ones are available at a reasonable price, I buy that. I don't buy all organic foods. I have no problem with you if you want to, that's fine. But I don't do that. Any other questions?
I have kind of response into the sister's question with eating your first meal of the day at noon. I, as most people know, am over 70 years old, and I have always had my first meal of the day at noon. Basically, because in the morning I did not like cereal because the cereal had a soggy texture. But then I also had 2 meals. So I had my first meal at noon. It was usually I ran home from school and had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, ran back to school, and then came home and, of course, had my dinner. So that has served very well for me. I've not had any problems, and I think it's, like you said, it's a matter of preference, what your body is kind of used to. I do not drink liquids between my meals. Liquids always come an hour after I have eaten, so my digestive system is working without liquids being put into my body. I do not mix fruits and vegetables together. I eat fruits, and then I'll eat my food. And And again, fruits and vegetables, I don't mix them together. I eat fruit first because it's digested in your system within 20 minutes after you eat it. And you get the energy from it very fast. And vegetables take a little longer to digest. And if you mix them together in your stomach, digestive system, you'll have noises going on in your belly, in your gut. So hopefully that sheds a little bit of light.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add to some of the comments that Julia just made. Some of that, it depends on our metabolism. I personally can't wait that long before I eat breakfast, because then I begin to have a low blood sugar issue, simply because I burn whatever I have fast. But what works for one person is not the same for others because of our metabolism, which is very individual. Anyway, and I've read that the issue of vegetables and fruits together, as she's saying, has to do with the fermentation, because when you eat a meal and then you eat another one too close to it, if the first one hasn't digested, it causes fermentation, because whatever digestion was going on stops and waits till the next meal catches up, which I know you know, but just adding that little comment.
Any other questions? If you don't have any more questions, then we're finished.
I'm sorry. I had a question about whole wheat. You talked about whole wheat, is better for you than the white flour, but
Hold the microphone up.
you talked about whole wheat, and nowadays you hear that whole wheat is not good either. Like maybe sourdough bread or something is better because of, by nature it was good, but I guess because of all the, what's that chemical, the GMOs and stuff like that are in it, it's no longer, it causes people, problems with digestion and other problems too. What are your thoughts on that?
I still think whole wheat is fine. I wouldn't worry. I'm not so concerned about GMO products. If you're concerned about that, buy organic. If it's organic, it's not GMO. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure what you want.
GMO is not organic, and the two are two different things.
What?
Genetically altered and organic are two different things.
Yeah, I know, but when food is classified as organic, it cannot be GMO according to the standards in the U.S. When you buy stuff that's organic, it's not GMO.
That's not correct.
Okay? That's not what I read. But anyhow, I'm not so concerned about GMO, okay? If you want to be concerned, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But I'm not saying you should never use GMO and you always have to use organic. I'll let you make that decision yourself. But for myself, I don't buy all organic. And, if I get soy, like I usually use soy milk as for my cereal, it says organic and non-GMO. Yeah. It says that on the bottom.
I have somewhat of a controversial question. What about salmon? You mentioned fish, but I've been encouraged to eat it, and they said that it has to be like wild caught, Alaskan or Pacific, not farmed.
And the problem with all fish is a problem with environmental pollution. And I would not eat fish because of environmental pollution and also because of cholesterol. There's cholesterol in fish. You don't need fish. Okay? If you're on a vegan diet, okay, I do encourage you to be safe, to use either vitamin B12 fortified foods or take a vitamin B12 supplement, which I take a vitamin B12 supplement, you know, every day. And so, but I don't use fish. I haven't used fish for 50 years unless sometimes it gets, you know, it's sneaked into food which I have and I don't know about it.
I do have another question real quick. You mentioned rice. Now, I heard that brown rice has a higher arsenic content than white rice, and so white rice is actually being considered more than brown rice.
Well, there is a possible problem with arsenic, and I won't deny that. But I still don't think that makes the white rice more acceptable. You know, they've got all kinds of different rices. You know, short grain, long grain, basmati rice, brown rice, and different things. So.
I have a question. What about the sea moss that's found in the ocean? Is that polluted too? That's not safe to eat?
What, the sea what?
The seaweed and the sea moss? It's got iodine, which is needed
yeah,
for your
there
thyroid.
probably is. I know that you can buy seaweed. You know, they use seaweed to make sushi and so on. And when I read that, I think I've seen some of it says organic seaweed. I wouldn't eat lots of it because I'd still be afraid of the environmental pollution.
Thank you. Thank you.
We do use, you know, I do eat sushi, and we do, you know, sometimes we buy the packages of the seaweed. But it's not something I eat lots of or on a regular basis.
You talk about fruits. When do you eat fruits? Do you have to eat it with the meals, or you can eat it between meals?
I usually eat my fruit with a meal. Usually I eat more fruit I eat fruit with my breakfast. And you are better to separate your fruits and vegetables, so I won't dispute that. But then also are you looking at your definition of fruits and vegetables botanically or by usage? See, because tomatoes technically are fruit.
Fruit, yes.
Okay, so you've got to recognize that. And you know, Spirit of Prophecy suggests it's better to avoid mixing fruits and vegetables, and I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not going to dispute, especially if you have digestive problems. You definitely don't want to do that. It's better to separate them. So eat your fruits, you know, like with your breakfast when you probably eat less vegetables, although some people will eat vegetables with their breakfast. So it's all a personal choice, and if your GI tract can tolerate it, I'm not going to say you should never do this or never do that. The things that I say you really want to never use are animal products: meat, fish, chicken, eggs, and dairy. I'm much stronger about that. If you want to mix in fruits and vegetables, I'm not going to berate you or, you know, make you feel bad about it. And if you say you need to separate, that's fine. I'm happy with that.
Now, what about plant-based meat? Is that is there anything in there that could be harmful that they put in plant-based meat?
Oh yeah, your meat analogs or plant-based meats. That's interesting. They've had some reviews, and there was one that came out recently, and my son sent it to me, where they had the plant-based meats versus the real meat, and the people weren't told which it was, and they couldn't tell the difference between the plant-based and the real meats as far as the taste went. But I will have to admit, and you have to admit, that your plant-based meats are highly processed foods. So you want to cut down on the frequent consumption of highly processed foods. The more processed the food, you know, that's why we say whole foods, plant-based. Well, tofu technically is processed. It's true. But in the manufacture of tofu, what they've done is they make the soy into like soy milk. They've removed the fiber. And then to precipitate out the protein, they add a catalyst, which is like calcium or magnesium sulfate, and that causes it to precipitate out. But the fiber hasn't been gone. I have a very good friend who I respected very much. He told me, this is Dr. Burnell Baldwin, he says, eating tofu is like eating white bread. I says, Dr. Burnell, I hear what you're saying, but there are still some good elements that are found in tofu and so on, even though it is partly processed. But it's a lot less processed than a garden burger or these other things. So,
You have any thought about MSG in the food?
MSG, if you're sensitive to it, definitely don't use it. But they're, nutritionally speaking, from the Department of Nutrition and the teachers at Loma Linda, they said unless you're sensitive to it, I wouldn't worry about it. And it's glutamate, which is from wheat. So MSG, if you want to, you can buy it. It's the common form that it used to be sold in and is still sold is Accent, is MSG. And when you buy, what we often buy is mushroom seasoning. And when I buy that, I read the label. All the mushroom seasonings will have salt, and then there's a mushroom extract. Okay? Some of them have MSG, some of them have salt, some of them have sugar added to it. So, but that makes your foods taste a little bit better. But I don't use it personally very often because I want to have low salt content in my diet or in my food. So I don't use mushroom seasoning very often. When I go out to eat, I get more salt in the food than I normally eat at home.
Doctor, have you heard of the Hunza people?
Yeah,
What do you think about them?
they're fine. I don't have any problem with them. If you want to live like they do, that's great.
The Hunza people are a group of Asian people that live up in a mountain
I
and
know.
they eat meat, they eat
And they
everything.
work.
But they grow their own crops and their
Yeah,
own
yeah.
stuff. They live to 120.
Well, I don't know about 120, but they would be considered like in a blue zone.
They eat a lot of stone fruits. Stone fruits.
Yeah, stone
Peaches,
fruits are fine.
plums,
Stone
apricots.
fruits are fine. You know, stone fruits are like your peaches and things like that.
Yeah.
I grew up on vegetable oil, which they call seed oils now, and I understand that they give everything has seed oil now, processed, highly processed, and it's bad because omega-3s are being overrun by omega-6s, which is in seed oil. So our Adventists and olive oil is the best, coconut, and if you want to fry it, is an avocado oil. But I understand stay away from that now. What do you say?
At home, when I cook, I don't use any oil. My wife uses a few drops of olive oil when she cooks. But my choice is I don't want the oil. Because when I go out to eat, I get oil in the food. I don't want to get any more by adding it at home. If you want to use an oil to cook with, extra virgin olive oil is fine. But for the amounts that you should be using, should be very small. And I would say a few drops and not teaspoons and tablespoons. And you've got to recognize a lot of salad dressings have oil in them as well. So just be aware.
Okay, it has been a long day for the doctor. And so we're going to at least have three more questions, and we're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna. Okay, go ahead.
I saw, somebody eat fruit in the morning and also in the evening. And then when I tried to ask somebody to eat fruit in the evening, I asked him, I said, why? And then he told me that to digest the fruit, it takes only 30 minutes or 40 minutes. So, that's a good, conclusion that we can eat better fruit in the evening instead in the morning. And also, to replace the MSG, you may try the lemongrass. Like you can cook anything with the lemongrass instead of MSG.
Good.
Some people think that mushrooms are a superfood, and some people think that we shouldn't be eating it because it's like a spore food. What do you think?
I don't have any problem with mushrooms. I know evidence of nothing. You don't want to eat the poisonous mushrooms.
I've read that cooking with olive oil at a high heat is not good because it causes oxidation, and then that can cause free radicals in your body. So it's best not to use the olive oil for cooking.
Okay. Okay. Last one, right there.
Doctor, what are your thoughts about when it comes to avocados? How many you should eat, like within a week? I know that I have a relative that has heart disease that could probably have blockages, right? Can't eat any at all. The doctors say not to eat it at all.
Not to eat avocado?
Well, if you have a blockage with the heart disease, blockage in the heart,
Oh, you're
quadruple
talking
blockage.
about narrowed arteries because of cholesterol plaque.
Well, that combination, I'm sure,
okay.
but compared to a regular diet, how much avocados? Avocados is a good food.
Okay, I heard you. Now just listen. Okay. Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn wrote a book about this, How to Reverse Heart Disease. And when he initially gets patients and he starts them out and they've got significant plaque, he doesn't want them to use the higher fat foods like nuts, seeds, olives, and avocados. So he restricts that. But later on, Dr. Dean Ornish has published papers which showed that on a type of New Start type diet, a vegan diet, that you can get those. They've shown before and after angiograms where the plaque disappears. And so if you've got severe atherosclerosis and your cholesterol is high, I don't have any problem for the first 6 to 9 months if you want to eliminate those foods. That's fine. But you do need some fat. You can't be on a fat-free diet. Okay, so there are natural fats. You've got to get some. Okay?
Well, we thank the doctor very much. Dr. Ing has been very knowledgeable. And tomorrow he's going to be here at 10 in the morning, from 10 to 12, to give us a lecture. And in the afternoon, there's going to be a chance for him for those who would like to have checked your plaques on your arteries. You can do that. He's going to be here from after the lectures from 2 to 4. So is there anyone that is interested on that? I want to see hands, because I calculated the time about.
If there's no one going to be here in the afternoon, then I'm leaving.
No, he has an appointment in the afternoon. So the max that I think that we can take is 10 people. So we'll see tomorrow. Okay. So I'm gonna do this. First come, first serve. Is that okay? All right. There is no lunch provided tomorrow, so you're on your own, and so I'm gonna be responsible for his food tomorrow. Doctor, what is the topic for tomorrow? If you have,
I'm going to be talking about cancer, heart disease, and diabetes.
oh, you're not gonna miss it. Okay. All right. So we're gonna wrap it up. Let's sing a song to praise God.